Hello friends, I hope you're all doing well. My name is Brian, and today we're going to look at a few more stories from Reddit. If you enjoy Reddit stories, why not hit like, subscribe, and maybe even the notification bell. And now, let's move on to the first story of the day. With love, my friends. I never thought I'd be the type of person to write one of these long Reddit-style posts, but here I am. I, 26F, have been dating my boyfriend Evan, 27M, for just over 2 years. We live in Chicago, met through mutual friends, and honestly, until recently, I thought we had a good relationship. Not perfect, but steady. He was sweet, attentive, and the kind of guy who always remembered little things like my coffee order or what snacks I liked when I was stressed. But a month ago, I stumbled across something that completely shattered how I saw him. It started on an ordinary Tuesday. Evan asked me to grab a document from his desk while he was in the shower. His desk is always a bit messy, papers piled up, notebooks everywhere, so when I opened one of his spiral-bound notebooks, I figured it was just random work notes. But instead, I found a list. At first, I thought it was kind of cute. It had entries like May 12th, bought her bubble tea, $6. 50. May 20th, paid for movie tickets, $28. June 1st, picked up her allergy meds, $14. Each line had a date, a description of what he'd bought me, and the exact dollar amount. I assumed maybe he was just budget conscious, keeping track of his spending. I'm not the type to judge that, honestly. I respect people who are careful with money. But the deeper I flipped through, the more unsettling it became. It wasn't just big things like dinners out or shared Ubers. It was everything. If he grabbed me a $2 granola bar, it was written down. If he paid for parking when we went to the zoo, it was logged with a dollar sign next to it. He had over a year of entries, going back to when we first started dating. I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Some people are just meticulous. But what really made my stomach twist was that at the top of the first page, he had written in block letters, Maya's balance. Maya is me. And apparently, I had a balance. It felt less like a budget tracker and more like a ledger. Like I was some sort of account he was investing in and expecting returns from. When he came out of the shower, I didn't even know how to bring it up. My heart was racing, but I casually asked, "Hey, what's this notebook?" and handed it to him. His face went pale. Instead of laughing it off or giving a reasonable explanation, he snatched the notebook out of my hands and muttered, "You weren't supposed to see that." I asked him, "What do you mean I wasn't supposed to see it? Why do you have a balance with my name on it?" He sighed, sat down, and rubbed his face. Then he said something that honestly made me feel like I'd been punched in the gut. "I just like keeping track of what I spend on you. That way I know it's worth it." Worth it. Like I was a car he'd put money into and was waiting to see if it would pay off. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process. Part of me wanted to scream, and part of me wanted to pretend it wasn't as creepy as it felt. I asked him, "So, what happens if it's not worth it? Do you send me an invoice?" He laughed awkwardly, but didn't answer. That was the first crack in what I thought was our perfect relationship. But I had no idea the cracks would turn into full-blown craters once I dug deeper. That night, after Evan brushed off my questions, I couldn't sleep. I kept tossing and turning, staring at the ceiling, replaying the words "worth it" over and over in my head. It wasn't even about the money. I've never been the kind of girlfriend who expects a man to pay for everything. I split bills, I treat him to dinners when I can, and I never ask for gifts. But the way he cataloged everything made me feel like I was under a microscope, not a girlfriend, but a transaction. The next morning, I couldn't resist snooping again. I know it's not the healthiest thing, but curiosity was clawing at me. While Evan was at work, I went back to his desk and opened the notebook again. This time, I noticed something I hadn't before: tabs. There weren't just pages under my name. There were other sections, each with a woman's name at the top. At first, I thought maybe they were old exes, maybe notes from before we dated. But when I flipped through, my stomach dropped. One tab read Lena. Another said Tasha. And each section had its own lists, dates, little items, dollar amounts. Same format as mine. But here's the kicker, some of the dates overlapped with mine. For example, on August 17th, my section said, dinner at Thai Palace, $52. But in Lena's section, the exact same date had, drinks at rooftop bar, $36. I sat there staring at the pages, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped the notebook. He had been keeping parallel ledgers? For other women? At that point, I felt physically sick. I slammed the notebook shut and just sat there, breathing heavily. I didn't want it to be true. Maybe he was helping friends? Maybe these were receipts for group outings? Maybe I was misunderstanding everything. But deep down, I knew. I took pictures of the pages with my phone, just in case. Then I put the notebook back exactly where I'd found it. When Evan got home that evening, I tried to act normal. I couldn't bring it up yet, I was still in shock, still processing. Instead, I observed him. The way he smiled at me, the way he kissed my forehead, the way he sat on the couch scrolling on his phone while I cooked dinner. It all felt fake. Like a play he was performing while keeping secret scorecards behind my back. And then it hit me, this wasn't just about money. The lists weren't only about tracking expenses. They were a map of his double life. I didn't know how far it went yet, but I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't look at Evan the same way again. I couldn't unsee the images of those lists. All day at work, my mind kept drifting back to the notebook hidden in Evan's drawer. Every time my phone buzzed with a text from him, a little "hope your day's going well" or a heart emoji, I felt this hollow ache in my chest. He sounded sweet on the surface, but I couldn't stop wondering if Lena or Tasha were getting the same messages. That evening, I met up with my coworker Hannah for a drink after our shift. She could tell something was off the second I sat down. "What's wrong?" she asked, leaning over her martini. "You look like you're about to cry." I hesitated, then blurted out everything. The ledger, the overlapping dates, the tabs with other women's names. Hannah's eyes widened more and more as I spoke. "That's not just shady," she said when I finally stopped. "That's creepy. Like, psych-level creepy. Who the hell keeps scorecards on girlfriends like they're business transactions?" "I don't know," I whispered. "I keep telling myself maybe it's innocent. But it doesn't feel innocent. It feels," I lowered my voice, "like he's cheating." Hannah didn't even blink. "Yeah. He is." The bluntness of her words hit me like a slap. My eyes burned. "But I need proof," I said quickly, as if defending him. "I can't just accuse him. What if I'm wrong?" "Girl, the proof is in the notebook," Hannah shot back. "You said the dates overlapped. What more do you need?" Her certainty shook me. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was holding on to denial because the alternative, that the man I'd been with for 3 years was living a double life, was too much to handle. I went home that night feeling raw and fragile. Evan was already in bed, scrolling through his phone, when I walked in. He smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Like he wasn't secretly writing little dollar signs next to my name while meeting other women behind my back. I climbed into bed, turned off the lamp, and stared at the ceiling in the dark. My heart was racing, my stomach in knots. That's when I decided I couldn't sit in silence anymore. I had to dig deeper, even if the truth destroyed me. So the next day, when Evan left for work, I made myself a cup of coffee, sat at his desk, and opened the drawer again. This time, I didn't just skim. I read. Line by line, page by page. And what I found made my blood run cold. The more I read, the more my stomach churned. The notebook wasn't just random scribbles or messy notes, it was detailed. Under Lena's section, there were notes like: took her to the boardwalk, $24, she loved the arcade games. Bought her flowers, $15, worth it, got a kiss. Under Tasha's: Uber to her apartment, $18, stayed the night. Brunch Sunday, $42, she said I'm the only one who listens to her. And in my section? It was sterile. Cold. Groceries $83. Netflix $15.99, shared. Dinner out $67, not worth it, she argued. I just sat there staring at those words, not worth it. That's how Evan saw me. Not as someone he loved, not as a partner, but as a line item on his balance sheet. He was literally calculating whether my presence in his life was a profitable investment. Worse still, some of the notes for Lena and Tasha overlapped with the same days he'd told me he was working late or hanging with his coworkers. I could remember specific nights. Nights I'd been curled up on the couch waiting for him, believing he was too busy to see me while he was out buying cocktails for another woman. The betrayal burned hot in my chest. My hands shook as I took more pictures of the pages. Part of me wanted to throw the notebook across the room, but I forced myself to put it back exactly where it had been. I didn't want him to know I'd found it. Not yet. That evening, I couldn't look at Evan the same. When he kissed me hello, I felt myself stiffen. When he asked what I wanted for dinner, my appetite was gone. I couldn't eat. Couldn't talk. Hey, he said gently, brushing my arm. What's wrong with you lately? You've been so quiet. I wanted to scream in his face, you're a liar, Evan. A manipulative, cheating liar. But instead I just mumbled, I'm tired, and went upstairs. Because I needed time. Time to plan. I wasn't about to confront him without a clear head. I needed to figure out what to say, how to say it, and whether I even wanted to hear his excuses. But one thing was certain, my relationship wasn't what I thought it was. Evan wasn't who I thought he was. And soon, he was going to realize that I knew everything. The next few days felt like living in a glass box. I could see everything clearly now, but Evan was on the outside, oblivious, still playing his part like nothing was wrong. He'd kiss me good morning, make coffee, crack a joke, and I'd smile faintly, pretending I wasn't cataloging every word, every movement, every excuse. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop replaying those pages in my head. The words not worth it circled me like vultures. The way he listed me under expenses while noting got a kiss next to Lena's entry made me sick. He wasn't just cheating, he was running a business model out of our relationship. I started watching him more closely. The way he kept his phone angled away when he texted. How he'd linger in the car a minute too long after coming home. The sudden weekend errands that didn't add up. Hannah's voice echoed in my mind, he's cheating. What more do you need? But I still wanted undeniable proof. Maybe it was my pride, maybe it was the need to see his face when I laid it all out. Either way, I decided to dig further. So one Saturday afternoon, when Evan announced he was grabbing a beer with Matt from work, I waited 10 minutes, then checked the GPS tracking app we had installed on our phones years ago for safety reasons. His little blue dot wasn't anywhere near the bar he claimed, it was parked outside a cafe across town. I drove there, my pulse pounding so hard I thought I'd faint. And there he was. Through the cafe window, I saw Evan leaning across the table, smiling that same soft smile he used on me, only this time it was directed at a tall brunette. She laughed, reached out, and touched his hand. He didn't pull away. My stomach dropped. It was Lena. I knew it without even asking. I didn't storm inside. Didn't cause a scene. Instead, I snapped a picture through the glass, my hands trembling, and walked away. That night, when Evan came home smelling faintly of coffee and perfume, I was sitting on the couch, waiting. The photo opened on my phone. My heart was hammering, but my mind was steady. I finally knew what I had to do. I sat on the couch with the photo glowing on my phone screen, rehearsing the words in my head. I'd imagined this confrontation 1,000 times since finding that notebook, but now that it was real, I felt an eerie calm. When Evan walked through the door, he tossed his keys on the counter and grinned at me. Hey, babe. You look serious. Everything okay? I didn't answer right away. I just held up my phone, the photo of him and Lena front and center. His smile faltered instantly. What's this? I asked, my voice low but steady. For a split second, his eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. Then he slipped on his mask, the one I now realized he wore every day. That's not what it looks like. I let out a humorless laugh. Really? Because it looks exactly like what it is. You, out with Lena. The same Lena you wrote about in your little expense notebook. The color drained from his face. He hadn't expected me to bring that up. You went through my stuff, he snapped, trying to shift the blame. Don't you dare, I shot back, standing now, shaking with anger. Don't you dare make this about me. You wrote down every dollar you spent on these women. You calculated whether I was worth it. You called me an expense, Evan. An expense. He opened his mouth, then closed it, fumbling for words. Look, it's not like that. It's just. I was keeping track. I didn't mean anything by it. Not mean anything by it? I almost screamed. You called me not worth it. You made a spreadsheet out of my love. Do you hear how disgusting that is? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Okay, yes, I messed up. But Lena and Tasha, they don't mean anything. I was just. I don't know, trying to see what else was out there. Testing things. Like our relationship was some kind of trial run, and I was a free sample he could discard. My chest felt tight, but my voice stayed firm. I don't care what excuses you come up with. I know what you did. And I'm done. His head snapped toward me. Done? Come on, don't be dramatic. We've been together for 3 years. And you threw it away the second you decided I wasn't profitable enough. I grabbed my keys from the table. You don't get to call this love. You don't even know what that word means. Evan's face hardened. If you walk out that door, that's it. We're over. I looked at him one last time, the man I thought I loved, the man who saw me as nothing more than a calculation, and I realized I didn't feel sadness anymore. Just relief. Good, I whispered, and left. Walking out of that apartment felt like taking my first breath after being underwater for too long. The night air was cold, sharp, but it cleared my head in a way nothing else could have. My hands were still trembling, but inside, a strange calm had taken over. I didn't go back to my place that night. Instead, I drove straight to Hannah's. When she opened the door and saw my red eyes and clenched jaw, she didn't even ask questions. She just wrapped me in a hug and whispered, "You finally did it, didn't you?" I nodded against her shoulder. I saw them together. I confronted him. It's over. Hannah pulled back, her eyes blazing. Good. About damn time. I never trusted that smug little bastard. She ushered me inside, made me tea, and let me unload everything, the notebook, the photo, his pathetic excuses. By the end, I was half laughing, half crying. Over the next few days, the fallout began. Evan texted me nonstop, first begging, then angry, then back to begging. You're overreacting. Don't throw away 3 years. I was just being curious, it didn't mean anything. You'll regret this when no one else treats you like I did. I blocked his number. Then the whispers started. A mutual friend reached out, telling me Evan was spinning the story, saying I was snooping through his private things and blew everything out of proportion. He even claimed Lena was just a co-worker he was mentoring. But the truth had a way of slipping through. Hannah, bless her soul, started quietly sharing what I'd found, not the intimate details, but enough for people to understand that Evan's expenses weren't just about gas and groceries. The narrative flipped quickly. Suddenly, people weren't asking me why I left him, they were asking me how I put up with him for so long. Meanwhile, I started to notice how different life felt without him. The silence in my apartment was no longer suffocating, it was peaceful. I could leave my phone on the counter without worrying who might text me. I could buy groceries without feeling like someone was tallying the cost in a ledger. But healing wasn't instant. I still woke up some mornings with that pit in my stomach, remembering how easily he lied to me, how I mistook manipulation for love. I still had to stop myself from replaying old memories, wondering if they'd ever been real. One evening, Clara invited me out with a few friends for dinner. I hesitated, afraid of running into someone who's still sided with Evan. But when I showed up, the warmth in their smiles caught me off guard. Nobody treated me like I was broken or pitiful. They just welcomed me, laughed with me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. It hit me that Evan might have stolen my trust for a while, but he didn't get to keep it. He didn't get to keep me. Just when I thought Evan had finally faded into the background, he pulled one last stunt that almost dragged me back into his chaos. It was a Thursday evening. I had just gotten home from work, kicked off my shoes, and was about to enjoy the blissful silence when there was a knock at my door. My stomach sank the second I peeked through the peephole. It was him. Evan. I debated pretending I wasn't home, but before I could even decide, he called out, "Please, just let me talk. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Against my better judgment, I opened the door a crack. He looked rough. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and his eyes had that desperate, restless look I'd seen only once before when his old job let him go. "I just need to explain," he pleaded, holding up his hands like he was surrendering. I didn't move to open the door further. "You already explained, Evan. Multiple times. And every time, you lied." He shook his head, his voice breaking. "No, I swear, Lena didn't mean anything. She was just a distraction. I messed up. But you're the one I want. You're the only one I've ever wanted." I stared at him, searching his face for even a flicker of truth, and all I saw was panic. The same kind of panic people have when they're about to lose control of something they thought they owned. Then, in a move that made my skin crawl, he pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait, but maybe this will show you how serious I am. He opened it to reveal a ring modest, but clearly expensive. My jaw clenched. "You think you can fix everything you've done by waving a ring in my face?" His expression twisted, his voice sharp now. "What do you want from me? I'm here, I'm begging, I'm offering you everything, and you're still walking away?" Something inside me hardened. What I want is honesty, respect, and trust. Things you'll never be able to give me. A ring doesn't erase betrayal, Evan. The silence that followed was heavy. His shoulders slumped, and for the first time, I think he realized he had lost. Really lost. I closed the door slowly, firmly, the image of him standing there burned into my memory. He knocked once more, softly, then left. That night, lying in bed, I felt a wave of emotions: sadness for what could have been, anger at what really was, and relief that I didn't let myself get pulled back in. Because if I had said yes out of pity or fear of being alone, I knew I would have been trapped in his cycle forever. Instead, for the first time in a long time, I felt free. After Evan's last desperate attempt with the ring, something in me shifted. I stopped feeling like the victim of his lies and started feeling like the survivor of them. I deleted his number, blocked him on everything, and packed up the last of his things that had somehow still been lingering in my apartment. His hoodie that I once wore on lazy Sundays. His toothbrush. The mug he always used for coffee. I stuffed it all into a box, taped it shut, and dropped it off at his office lobby without a note. No ceremony. Just finality. It was strange, the more I removed pieces of him from my life, the lighter my apartment felt. Like the air wasn't so heavy anymore. Even the silence stopped being suffocating and started being peaceful. Hannah noticed the difference before I did. One night, we were on the balcony sipping wine, and she looked at me and smiled. "You're glowing again. I haven't seen this version of you in years." I laughed, brushing it off, but she was right. I had stopped carrying his weight. Slowly, I began rebuilding myself. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned when I was busy catering to Evan's moods. I started painting again in messy, abstract strokes that looked more like emotions than art. I went hiking with coworkers, rediscovered my love for indie films, even signed up for a cooking class just because I could. The best part? I didn't have to check in with anyone. I didn't have to explain where I was, what I was doing, or why. My time was mine again. Of course, there were hard days too. Nights when I'd lie in bed replaying his betrayals, wondering how I missed the signs, blaming myself for trusting too much. But each time, I reminded myself, trust isn't the problem. His deceit was. My ability to love openly wasn't a weakness, it was his inability to respect it that destroyed us. And in a weird way, I started feeling grateful. Not for him, but for the wake-up call. If I had stayed with Evan, if I had ignored the gut-wrenching truth, I'd still be stuck in that loop of suspicion and hurt. Instead, I had a chance to choose better. To be better. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of being alone. And in that solitude, I realized something important: I was never really alone at all. I had myself. And that was enough. Looking back now, months later, I can honestly say losing Evan was the best thing that could have happened to me. At the time, it felt like my world was crumbling: 10 years of friendship betrayed, a relationship poisoned by lies, and a friend group that fractured under the weight of it all. But sometimes, you need everything to fall apart to see what was worth holding on to in the first place. What I learned most from this whole experience is that boundaries matter. I used to think being a good friend or a good partner meant giving endless chances, excusing red flags, and swallowing my own discomfort just to keep the peace. But peace built on silence isn't real peace. It's just self-abandonment dressed up as kindness. I also realized that when people show you who they are, when they disregard your privacy, laugh off your concerns, or twist the blame back onto you, you need to believe them. No amount of history or shared memories can excuse disrespect. Hannah stuck by me through it all, and our friendship became stronger because of it. We don't always agree on everything, but I trust her, because she never once minimized what happened. She didn't try to play devil's advocate or gaslight me into forgiving someone who hurt me. She stood by me, and that meant everything. As for Lena and Evan, I don't know where they are now, and honestly, I don't care. I don't check their social media, I don't ask mutual acquaintances about them, and I don't let myself wonder what if. That chapter is closed. I ended up reporting Lena to the proper channels for her HIPAA violation, and while the outcome wasn't as severe as some people thought it should have been, I felt relief knowing I had spoken up. Whether or not it changes her, I did my part. And Evan? He taught me that love without trust is just chaos wearing a disguise. I'll never let myself settle for that again. Nowadays, I wake up in a quiet apartment filled only with things that bring me peace. I make my own routines, fill my weekends with people who actually want the best for me, and chase passions I once shelved for someone else's comfort. I've learned to trust myself again, and that's a kind of freedom no relationship can ever replace. If there's one thing I'd say to anyone reading this who feels trapped in a friendship or relationship that constantly chips away at their boundaries, it's this: you are not wrong for standing up for yourself. You are not wrong for saying enough. Sometimes, closing the door isn't cruelty. It's survival. And now, finally, I don't feel like the girl who lost everything. I feel like the woman who chose herself. So much for being here. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care. And much love.